All right, well, welcome to building your first SQL Server Container Lab in Docker. What they don't tell you. I want to lead off with a couple of things here. My name is Chris Bell, lead DBA at the Motley Fool. If you want investment advice from me, it is do not listen to me. I've not been allowed to invest in the market for 5 years because other things I did. No, that sounds really bad. Other places I've worked, so I'm not one to talk to about that. But I also want to put in this little tidbit caveat right up front. I am not a Docker expert. Are there any Docker experts here? Oh, this is going to be fun. Okay, no Docker experts. Okay, I'm sorry for what I'm going to be saying. But what I am is a DBA that's been doing this for a good while. And last year-ish, I want to start playing with, my dev team was going, oh, we're going to containerize everything, Docker everything, go nuts with it, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, yeah, we're going to put the databases in it. Well, hold on. Let me go see what I can figure out about this. And let me just fire up a little lab. I'm going to be running this lab just on my local Windows 10 machine. So you too can try this yourself at home. I hope you do. But I hit a few little hurdles for me that kind of drove me nuts because at the time when I was going through things, a lot of sessions went to the point of like, see, it's easy. Run this script and ta-da, SQL's running. That's like next, right? On an install. So I want to go a little bit further in depth and see what all was in here. Let's see, I think that jumped a slide there. Silent cell phones. I'm just really curious. This is an ego thing. How many people actually know me and have seen a presentation I've done before? Okay, so you know I don't lie when I say I may come down and answer your phone for you. And I have a microphone, and I'm being recorded and live streamed. So that little tab on the side, just flip it to silence, we'll all be good and stuff. Unless you're one of those people that walks around the grocery store on speakerphone, right? Yeah. Love the laughs on that because we've all encountered it. If you have been inspired by anybody that's up on this stage and have intention to do that kind of a thing, notice I didn't say me, but anybody else and the skill, this is what got a lot of us to where we are, is the PASS community and the PASS features and what PASS actually offers us. This online training, Summit, SQL Saturdays, user groups, all that kind of thing. Be sure to check that out. I know every single session you've been drilled into about this kind of thing, but it's what put us where we are. We hope it gets you guys where you've got to get to with that or where you want to go to as well. Me, that's me. That was before these classes. Ooh. I'm the lead DBA at Motley Fool. I've been working with SQL Server since, way back when. Lives outside the box. I tend to try to have more abstract thought when it comes to doing things in SQL Server. I do a lot of weird security talks. I'm doing one tomorrow where I just kind of throw out all the users out of my database and it still works. Best way to secure a database, get rid of the users. You laugh, but I actually do it. But I'm out of the Washington, D.C. area. I'm the PASS DC chapter lead. SQL Saturday organizer there as well. Anybody here from East Coast region there where it's not too far? Right, December 14th is our SQL Saturday. If you haven't signed up, come on up. I won't be speaking there. It'll be better quality. We're all set. Also former data platform MVP, just because once you're an MVP, you always want to say you were. Knowledge still there. Session evals, this is important. This is important. Everyone says, because we value it and all this. No, by you not filling this out, it means they keep bringing me back. It's your fault. Your vote matters. So get out there, get the evals in. They're being really nice. They're letting you wait until next week to get it done. So when you're on the plane and bored and you got that Wi-Fi, go ahead. Go, oh yeah, that session. I remember that guy. I don't want to see him again. And everybody else can great scores. Be awesome. All right, so let's jump into this real quick. I'm not going to do an in-depth talk of what containers are. There are so many better sessions about that, plus Bob Ward's in the house. I'm not going to even try to compete with that. But I just want to get a general gist of what this is. And containers are kind of a method of OS virtualization. I think, how many folks here are familiar with, actual running on Rust, have a hardware server, PC at home? We've all done something like that, right? We all know that. That's old school. How about virtualization, VMs, Hyper-V, VMware, just about everybody, just about everybody for that. Well, this is kind of the next level that it's going to, is towards containers, and what are we doing with this? Virtualization was great because it let us start to go and say, Hey, I've spent a lot of money on hardware. I was only using 20% of it. Well, now I'll just throw 5 more machines on top of it. Look, I'm using 100% of my hardware. Great return on investment. This takes us even further, because now we start looking at our operating systems and the calls for that kind of a thing. And lets us take the code that we're running. A lot of times it's app development and stuff. And we put that into a container that we can run anywhere, cross-platform. I say anywhere because not every container runs everywhere, but it gives us an option to open it up a lot more, have a lot more option in there of what we can do. It's kind of like a virtual machine, but without the operating system. Does that make sense? I see some heads nodding. I know it's late. We're all like falling asleep, but okay, awesome. So really, how are they different from VM? Sometimes the words don't work. Sometimes pictures work better. So let's look at it this way. On the left side, we'll consider building in VMs. On the right side, we'll look at kind of how a container can work. When you do a VM, you're going to have a hypervisor, your VMware, your Hyper-V, that kind of a thing. On top of that, you're going to put a guest OS. You're going to allocate those resources to a VM. Throw Windows on this one, Linux, and whatever you're going to do. We'll go with Windows. Windows. On that, you install your bins and libraries that you need, all your little bits and pieces to make your app work, and then you install your app. Sound familiar? We're all kind of familiar with that concept. Containerizing, what we do is you kind of have this container controller over here, this Docker, which is just, Docker is a specific brand name of the different type of controls out there. From there, that's what's holding our OS components in our bins and libraries. They're actually held there and shared among the apps. And so your container goes and has only the bits and pieces that it needs, but not the actual OS there. And so it lets us move these things around a little bit more. Does that kind of make some sense? Seriously, so many people describe it better than me. There's lots of great sessions streaming. Well, it's streamed earlier. Like, watch those ones too. They'd be great for that. But so we're looking at a little bit of an abstraction in there. As I said, I like to live outside the box. Containers are kind of like a box, not as boxy as a VM. But you can see this is one of those things where your OS cost, if you have that, can start to be cut down on. And now we start to take advantage more of, let's pack this server really full, or these host machines with more and more items in there, and get a lot more flexibility for moving our app around, because we don't have to take that big giant image of an OS that has 80% of the stuff we don't use and taking it over here and using that. Kind of with me? Good enough? Yeah, get to the good stuff? All right, let's move on towards the better stuff. So I got a little to-do list of what I want to go through today and kind of get the gist of what we're going to do. One, get Docker installed and working. I am going to be showing Docker for Windows, okay? Because I run on Windows World for the most part. I do have some stuff running Linux. I'm not doing that. Most of these concepts will work the same when you do the configurations and get in there. But I'm just going to show briefly. This is where you go, grab this, get it on there, run it, and that will start to get Docker running. So how you go get an image to do an actual install. And what I'm doing, because I'm a DBA, remember I said I'm not a Docker person, I'm a DBA. I don't want any kind of crippled version of SQL running for me. I shouldn't say crippled version, but less than optimal will give me every choice I need to do because this is my lab. I want to install full dev edition on a Windows machine, basically. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be installing developer edition of SQL Server on a container. You like that idea? Yeah? Everybody with me with that? Cool. All right. And everyone's like, no, we wanted Linux. Yeah. Then we're going to actually create a SQL Server container. And then we'll go and we'll interact with that SQL Server container. Now, when I was trying this out on my own and looking at online courses and classes and reading notes and all sorts of stuff, that was great, and everyone stopped here. I went, wait a minute. That's not enough for me. That's literally, I installed the server, turned it on, I went, there it is, go have fun. I want to know how to do some other things that kind of bugged me. When I build in my environment, microphone, sorry, poor headphone guys just when I build my labs and that in my office, I have DNS, and I actually want to be able to consistently connect to a server, right? Anybody have a lab in their office or workplace that they get to play with? Hopefully. Okay, some. Who has an office that uses static IPs on their servers? Generally? Yeah, that's a general thing in that. Some dudes, okay. Just getting some ideas in there. Well, this is one of the things that I like to have is a static IP. I'm a DBA. I like consistency. It's that whole ACID properties in life, too. So I want to go into some of the advanced settings, like how do you set a static IP for a container? It's one thing for me to connect through the name and the port and everything, but how would I connect through the IP without using a port number? Oh, that'd be kind of cool to figure out. Let's see if we can actually do that. Talk about Docker files. If anybody was in any other Docker session, you may have seen it and they're going to blitz through, but I want to show you how a Docker file can be used to build your lab environment more of how you want it to be. Things like, okay, I'm firing up a SQL Server lab. You know what would be really cool? If it actually had databases in it already. Right? I think that for me would be helpful, other than the system databases. So I like to actually maybe I've got a backup already. Maybe I have data files somewhere and I just want this model thing I'm using. I want to throw that in my lab. How do I get a system where I say, hey, build this container, and when I connect to it, my database is already there? I kind of like that idea. Data volumes. What happens when you turn off a container? What happens if you remove a container? What happens to the data that was in that container because it was all sitting there? You know, this is that whole thing of, we're data people. We kind of like our data to persist when we turn a server off. It's a hunch. So we kind of want that to stick around. Well, how do you do that with a container? And there's different ways to do that. But then other things for me too, when I said, okay, well, container is its own little isolated little world. Lives over here, does its thing. Well, what if I do something like, odds are if I'm firing up a lab, it's either because I'm going to do something that I'll probably make a backup and go push out to somewhere, generate a script out, or somebody, oh, I should do a survey. How many devs are in the room? Oh, that's too many for me to say stuff. Okay. So, yeah, you know, things like, oh, something happened, we've got to pull something from backup. I don't know who did that, but someone did that. Well, how do you get a backup from a server over there into my container that's over here? How do I get that to happen? Or how do I make a backup in my container because I did something really cool? I want to share it with everybody. How do I get it off of that actual container and out here to somewhere that I can give it to somebody else? Now, these are things that me as a DBA was like, this kind of matters to me. And it was kind of tricky to find information about how to do that. So that's what I want to go through. Does this sound like you all on board with this? You all, there's my 6 years in Texas coming out. I am from Canada originally. I live in DC. I am like such a mutt. Great. All right, well, let's dig in here. Let's see some of the stuff that we can do here. So getting Docker installed. I'm going to go through a few of these things, and we'll do some actual demos and show you what's happening. Some of it real time, some of it not, and just see some fun stuff there. PowerShell is going to be the main tool you use. Everybody familiar with PowerShell and using it? Who doesn't use PowerShell? Okay, doesn't use. All right, it's going to be tough doing containers, but hey, you can get started. We'll make it easy. I'll give you all the scripts and everything in there. But yeah, we're going to do this, and I tend to always run it as an admin just because that makes sure I can do what I have to do. I'm going to show you how, well, I'm going to give you the link here. And you get the slide deck if you want to download it. Download Docker for Windows. There's where you can get it. It's an executable install. Yay, Windows installs. Quick and easy. So you get that and fire in there. And then we go ahead and we start up Docker. My Docker is configured to run Windows containers. When you run this tool, it defaults to running Linux containers, which is going to make doing a Windows install really hard. All right? Then what I like to do too, once I have Docker installed, is check which version I'm actually running. I like to be kind of current with it. I've got burned many a time by putting the most current on and somebody retracted some code from it and things don't work for me anymore. We'll get to that when we get to IPs. That. But yeah, it's just a command in PowerShell. Docker version will tell you the version that you're running. Nice and simple. Anything looking really complex yet? We're all good? You're all going to try this, so like Monday when you get back or whenever you get back. That's what we're looking for. All right, so how do we make sure Docker actually works? How about hello world? Don't we all do that? Every time you go to learn some kind of new programming type, what do they make you do? Loud enough so the mic picks it up. Hello world, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we actually have that in Docker. Docker has that. There's a hello world program. Guess how you run it? Docker container run hello world. So once you've done your Docker install and you've got it running, you know what version is there, great. Fire that line off, and that will actually be able to tell you if your Docker system is configured and running right. And so we'll run through that real quick and just see what it does. Then I want to go out and get a Docker SQL Server image. Lots of places you get them. I tend to use Docker Hub. Right? I think Microsoft is working on their own hub. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. No? Okay, no blue badges? Okay. But there's different places you can go get these. I go out to Docker Hub. Make sure you log in first. I mean, it's easier. You can also make your own repositories out there. You can have your own local, which you'll see will have a local repository on my system as we load these things down. And as I make my own images and that kind of stuff in here, we can do that. But you can also go out into Docker Hub, and you can actually publish these things. It's almost like a GitHub for your images. And I think that's kind of cool, but it's also, ooh, that's really scary. Because if you're going to be doing an install, make sure you grab the right image, because there's some interesting ones out there. The way you would do that is actually your PowerShell command is docker search Microsoft/MS-SQL. I know it's weird to see it all in the slides. We'll see it in the demo in the actual script that you'll get step by step. I'm going to be looking for Developer Edition. We'll take a look and see where that is out there and what else is there. But it is going to be Microsoft-MS SQL Server Windows Developer. Just like when we go and get our ISOs for doing installs on servers and that kind of stuff. As far as I know, the image that I grabbed the other day was 17, because I didn't have a 19 image that I wanted to use just yet for full-blown Developer Edition. We're going to go and pull that down. We do a Docker PowerShell command. Docker pull Microsoft MS SQL Server Windows Developer. It's that simple to go and say, hey, go and download all this stuff. No more clicking around and saying, yes, you can have my email so I can download this file. You just go in, grab it, and you're all good to go in there. This is not a tiny file. Hello World is small. Sure, it's Hello World. SQL Server is not so small. It's about 15 gig. So I've taken the liberty to pre-download that, because with the Wi-Fi here, we'd be here for like the whole week. And this would be just one session for 3 days. But we didn't want to do that. So I've got that already there for you, so we should be all set there. And when we're done, we can take a look and make sure it is in our local repository just by running Docker images. Again, I'll show you all that in the script and everything. So we're all on board with everything so? We're all good so far with this? Still pretty straightforward for what we're doing, right? That's why I was like, this is awesome. I'm a DBA and I can do Docker. Woohoo! You can too. All right, well, let's go into the demo and take a look at this. So let's go, we'll check the Docker version, we'll run Hello World. It is going to download that. Oh, here's hoping Wi-Fi is working. Otherwise, it's going to be really awkward. And then we'll pull the images down for that. We'll see how that happens. And we'll review our repository. And then we'll come back over here and we'll look about creating the actual SQL container. All right. All right, can you guys see that okay? That big enough? If not, move up. I have Zoom, we can do this kind of stuff. You know, I should make sure my Docker is running. That would be good. All right, we should be running. Docker -- version, I fire that off. Goes out and says, hey, you're running version, oops, there we go. 19.03.1 build 74B1E89. I love it when they make sense with numbering. It makes my life so much easier to know the next one in sequence. Yeah, live outside the box, man. That's what you live in. So when I want to run a container, let's take a look and see what images I have down here. If I come down, here's the Docker images I mentioned. I fire that off. You can see in my repository I have one. I'm sorry it wraps weird, but I tried to make this big enough for you to see. But can you see what that's saying there? Repository, tag, image ID. We see all that there, okay? You got to do some abstract thought with me because of the line wrap. But you see I've got a Microsoft MS SQL Server Windows Developer, their latest version, image ID, created 22 months ago, size 15.1 gig. So that's all that I have in my repository right now. So the thought, as we mentioned earlier, it's like, oh yeah, no, you can download your images and you go run. Well, what happens now if I'm going to just do container run hello world? What do you think is going to happen? I hear mumbling, but no answers. It's got to find it. How's it going to find it? It's actually going to search. Yeah, it's actually kind of cool. It's going to go out on its own. Make sure I hit the right key here, otherwise it gets really weird in there. Yep, see? Oh, red. Yeah, couldn't find the image. I didn't have that. But wait a minute. More red. What the heck is going on? This has actually gone out. Oh, thank you, Wi-Fi. This actually went out, and what it did was went, hey, you don't have this. My Docker Windows is logged into Docker Hub. Let me go out here, and I'm going to go download that image, throw it in your repository, and fire up the container. And then Hello World comes back and says, hey, it shows that your installation, I love how it says, your installation appears to be working correctly. and just says, this is what we did to do this. We contacted the Docker daemon, and the service, basically. The service went and pulled the Hello World image from the Docker hub, and it pulled the Windows AMD 64 Nano Server version, went out, created a new container for that, and then it streamed the output to your client right here for you to see this output. Boom, here you go. Hey, go try some other stuff. Great, quick, easy way to check that. Once you've done that initial Docker for Windows executable install and you've started Docker, fire this off. If it went that fast here, it's going to go really fast for you. So let's just see some stuff there. But what gets fun with it, too, now is when we go in, we look at our images here. You can see I now have in my local repository, there's my Hello World that's already downloaded and it's sitting there for me to use again and again and again if I want. Yes, I got a question. I'm going to try to answer them. Why is the SQL image so large? Because that is full-blown developer edition. That's not a little compacted, oh, here's a little bit to run on Linux or anything small. This is actually the full-blown, same thing as if you go download the big ones and that. And being a container image, it has all the Windows components it needs to run as well, not just SQL Server. That's the trick with containers. Containers contain those bits and pieces that they need. This is not just a, oh, it's a 4 gig, 10 gig, 12 gig image of SQL Server. The reason that this is 15.1 gig is because you also have the Windows components that you need in there that are going to be running, but only the Windows components that SQL Server is going to need. And oddly enough, there's a lot of them. So. There's parts that it will use, but there's other parts that I don't have on my Windows 10. As far as I know, I'm not a Docker expert in that sense, but as far as I know, that's what it is. It has everything that it needs in that container, because that's to launch and run the full server aspect. But being Dev Edition, it's going to have the options to install SSIS, SSRS, and all those other things as well. So unlike a lot where it's like, oh, I'm just going to run SQL on Linux, and it's just the bare bones, much smaller, again, this is full-blown Windows Developer Edition. So as far as I know, it's got a lot of little extra bits and pieces in there. And it takes a fair while to download that one. Yes. Is the image available for free? The image is yes. Licensing, no. That's the thing, is a container is still running a version of SQL. If you throw this out and have it running, it's still a version of SQL Server that you're going to have to license if you're going to be using it in live environments, that kind of thing. Developer Edition, though, is free. Right? Because we all have that. We have Developer Edition. It's free to try it out and do that kind of thing. Just don't run it in a live environment. And that kind of a thing. Oh, here's a little fun thing that most folks don't talk about. Did I get that? When can I fit that in here? Oh, let's fit it in now. Here's something fun for me. Personal opinions. Out of curiosity, when you run SQL Server, who uses only SQL Server logins for credentials in their live environment? No. All right, is anybody running Docker or containers with SQL in your live environment? Not yet, okay. I'm not either, because Active Directory doesn't work nicely with it. Yeah, it actually doesn't really. There's kind of a way you can jerry-rig your way around it using GMSAs. If you want to know what those things are, come to my session tomorrow. Slip that plug in. I'll be talking about GMSAs and that kind of stuff. But you got to do some tweaking and I was going to say twerking, but I guess you could, to kind of get it to work. I have not played with that yet. It's on my to-do list that all DBAs have. That means that in the next 5 years I might get to it. But yeah, it's a bit trickier that way. So for me personally, this is not going to work for me in a live environment unless I'm running something that's using only SQL logins right now. Or if I'm willing to take on that risk of using this kind of workaround. As far as I know, though, things are being worked on, and hopefully we'll have AD integrated at some point in the future. I have no idea when. Hopefully that doesn't deter you from trying Docker or containers or anything like that. But yeah, a little side note there, if that's something that kind of, which is why I say let's build a lab. I'm all for building a lab for doing this kind of thing. All right, we good? As I said, I'm going to answer questions about Docker horribly. So, okay, we're good. All right, well, let's go take a look and just to see the search. What's nice is within the PowerShell, you can do a Docker search for MS SQL. Let's actually clear that out down there and run that. And it'll go out and show you, hey, here's all the different ones that you can go and grab. You can see right at the top, Microsoft MS SQL Server Linux. You can see we've got that one there. Can everybody read that okay? Right, there's a couple of versions. There's our SQL Server Windows Developer version. Great, Microsoft R Smorthy / MS SQL. Hold on. I don't know who that is. I don't know what company that is, if it is a company. But with the MS SQL tools or the MS SQL Data Grip MS SQL Server Linux. Remember earlier I said it's like make sure you're grabbing the right image. You'll see later on how you can build your own images and customize them. And when you put them out, odds are you're not going to be able to tag them as Microsoft's. So if you want to make sure you got Microsoft going in there, make sure you grab the Microsoft images and that kind of thing. If I didn't have this already on my system, I'd run this Docker pull Microsoft that, and just like it did Hello World, it would actually start going and pulling this information down and loading this into my repository, which again, being 15.1 gig, I decided to do that the other night because it would be a little too big for here. All right. All right. We all go with that, though? Yeah? And I know I'm going to get tons of things online streaming. There's probably some chat thing tearing me apart for talking about how Docker images work and all that. I haven't ripped them apart. Again, I'm a DBA. That's somebody else's problem. So let's talk about creating a SQL container. So you're set. You know how to get Docker installed. You know how to get it running and check that it's on your system, right? You know how to get your image that you want to install. Everyone's with me? We're not hard yet. Nothing difficult yet? Okay, good. So how do we create a SQL container? Well, that's how. Oh, yeah, you laugh at me, but I tell you, when I was trying to learn this last year, this is what I'd be told. Yeah, just do this. Okay, well, yeah. I love reading code. Docker run -- name walks doc demo -d -p, blah, 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 all this kind of weird stuff. Yeah, well, this is a PowerShell line of code that we put in there. And I've just got some little notes here real quick. I'm sorry that it's small. It's the font sizes that it scaled to automatically. So you gotta have to actually listen. Docker run, okay? I want Docker to run a thing. It's like, oh, great, logic. I like logic. -- name walks doc demo, the name I want this container to run as. It's kind of like my server name, right? It's what my container is going to run as. -d, run detached, like a service. If you do this and don't put the -d and you close your PowerShell, or you go, where'd my prompt go? Let me go back to it, Control-C, guess what happens to your container? Turns off. So you're going to want that -d in there when you're doing this, so you can actually get it started off, have it go running as a service. -p is port mapping. Maps your local host port number to the container internal port number. So in this case, I got 1433.1 mapping to 1433. What's 1433? SQL Server default port. What's 1433.1? The port I want on my local machine when I connect to redirect to 1433 on my container. -e are my environment variables. When I'm setting this up, I want it to run. I want the configuration values. I want my SA password to be s@12345. Do what I say, not what I do. I do a lot of security talks. This is a demo. All right? If you do passwords like that, you deserve everything that happens to you. All right? So you put that in. We got the -e for end EULA equals yes, because if you don't accept the end user license, you're not going to get to launch your container. And use my image that I've already downloaded, my SQL Server developer image, or any other one that I decided to grab and get. Now when you see that first line, does it make a lot more sense? Yeah? Yeah, cool. So you get that fired up in there, and you get that sent. Now, how do we know our container is actually running once it's going? Because if we're going to run as a service, there's got to be something going on. How do we check on this? Well, to check our status is Docker PS. That's the PowerShell command, Docker PS. Tell me what's running. And that will list any running containers on our system. Keyword running. I can take my containers, turn them on and off, on and off, on and off. That's part of the joy of them and excitement is if I don't need it, I'm turning that part off. If I need SQL Server, I'll turn SQL Server on. We all love to just turn our SQL servers on and off when we don't need them. If you're in the cloud, I guess you do that. Save money. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's bad advice. See, this is why these evals matter. This is why session evals matter. It keeps people like me off the stage. But this will list all our running containers. Docker ps-a-all will tell us all the containers that we have already, basically that we said, go ahead and run these. Maybe we've turned them off, but they're configured and ready to go sitting on our system. Docker inspect, and then the container name. Remember, we gave that walkstock demo as a nice name because I speak English and I read English. And the random names that Docker generates are hilarious. So we'll show you some in the script there. But this will generate JSON of the container details. It'll tell you your IP address, the name, configuration, how you've mounted drives mounted, all sorts of stuff in there. It's kind of cool. We'll take a quick look at that. And there's some fun stuff that's in there too that you got to keep an eye out for. We'll see that. Now, when you're connecting, you notice earlier I said, hey, what about IP addresses? Right? I kind of like the idea of a static IP and stuff, but it gets interesting how containers work. To get it, every time you restart your container, the IP address changes. The name stays the same. The port mapping stays the same. The IP address changes. You see why, as a DBA, that kind of freaks me out, I hope. I like stability. I work in a world of like static IPs, and that's why I know if my DNS decides to not work, I can still get to my machine. That's where my world is, because we have DNS issues. Everywhere I go, there's DNS issues. So there's a bit of code to get the current IP and extract it out of that information, the JSON. You'll see why in a moment. And this is clunky. It's in the script, so you definitely want to copy paste. We'll set our variable that. We'll do Docker inspect of our container that we've got, and we'll go to convert from JSON and grab extended properties all the way through down to select the IP address on this container. It's just easier to copy paste. Yay, copy paste. And then we'll go ahead, and once we get this set in here, I also want to go and show how we interact and how we actually log in and how do we connect to a SQL server. So we'll use SSMS for this, and I want to connect with the IP address. I'm going to connect with the local port and port number. What's really cool is that once you do that, once you're connected, it's a regular SQL server, essentially. Now, depending on which image you decide to use determines what features you have available, how you decide to configure your SQL server. Oddly enough, you don't put components in there, they're not going to be there to run, right? Configure it right, and things are there for you to use. But it just looks, for us, in SSMS, it's going to look like just like a regular SQL server. And that's a really nice touch about that kind of thing. But again, mostly, there's some things that just we can't do from within SSMS, like stop and restart my SQL service. Sometimes we have to do it. Maybe it's what you got to do. But you'll see that those options are not available to us from within SSMS, because we're not just running a service running on a VM, right? We're running a container that has everything it needs inside of that. And so if you were to go to the VM and just rip everything out that makes that SQL server run, that's what we're running. There's no service to turn on or off. The container is essentially the service at that point. So we got to use PowerShell to stop that container. Guess how you do that? Docker stop container name. So they've made it actually pretty easy for us to get some of these things going and get in here and get some of this stuff happening. Let's go take a look at this. Let's run a SQL container. Let's connect via port number and IP address, see how that works in. Let's add a database. Right? We'll just throw one in there. Just see like what's the process. So it's on a container. There's got to be some funky weird thing you got to do. You put it on the list. And yes, I spelled it quickly, apparently. I just caught that. Thanks, review board. I shouldn't say that. I'm on the board of that stuff for reviewing slides. So, whoops. Well, there you go. Do as I say, not what I do. Let's stop and restart the container, and let's connect again as we do above and see how that actually interfaces what happens and what works and what doesn't work in there. All right. Make sure my container is running. Nope. Container is not running. You guys should have me run the container. So there's our line that we had. Remember we talked through it on the first slide we had there, way long, it seems like ages ago. Yeah. So run that, fire that off. You go out, you get this really funky like GUID type number that comes up here and appears. And that's the unique identifier. If you dig through the file system, you can actually find where this folder and all the components exist and see that in there. It's going to take just a couple minutes to get fired up here and get going. And then once it's there, we can actually go and inspect and see all sorts of cool information about our container. Things I really should click in the back while I'm talking through slides. All right, there we go. You know it's running because I got a prompt back and I use that -D, so it's running as a service, running detached. So now I want to come in, let's clear this out and then run this. You ready to see what information we can pull out of a container? Yeah, that's, Okay, just a little bit of stuff. So this is the basic information that we do when we inspect a container to say, hey, give me some stuff. So if I wanted to get my IP address, it's somewhere in here. Now you see why I say copy-paste matters. Copy-paste a little bit of code, it'll tell you exactly what the IP is. Otherwise, you got to go actually way down here into the network connections. And we can find our IP address down here. Down here. We can find it way buried down. Some other interesting things you get in here, you can start to see. Come up here. Just take a quick look at some of this. The ID that it created, that big number we saw up top when it was creating it. So, okay, there's the ID for it. When it was created, it was PowerShell that did it. You know, the command that we did to do all this. Okay, and EULA was set, the variables. Okay, this is really cool. Status, running, pause, fault, started at, finished at, health, starting. Great, we got it. It's running, it's working. We see stuff in here. More configuration stuff, different ports, the bindings. Here's our host port that's coming binding to our local. So all these weird little flags we set and different things we were looking at, that's all in here. But there's something interesting I want to find that's sitting here. You can just, you know, let's see. No, I ran my container. Everything should be fine. Oh, yeah, that's an interesting thing to find in the middle of a JSON dump. Yeah, as I said, I tend to do security things more often. So I was like, hey, where's it put that? Oh, great, it just sticks it right there. So you think you start your container, it's like, oh, it's okay, nobody can look at it. If they can inspect your container, they may be able to grab your SA password if you do that. There is a method to use secrets to do that instead of actually typing it in. I saw hands go up like, wait a minute, there's got to be a workaround. Yeah, you can use secrets for it. Pardon? How do you patch or upgrade? The general concept in containers, the question is how do you patch and upgrade, like SQL Server? How am I going to patch that? Oh, it's so nice. I didn't have it planned. I'm going to give you, I'll do this. I'll give you the 15-second answer, maybe, because I've already paused that long. But we can continue at the end if I got time for it. But the concept of using containers, okay, who patches their SQL servers on a regular basis? And it's like, oh, downtime, I got to schedule that. Oh. Yeah, containers, yeah, you just go grab the new image and say, hey, I want you to move over and use that image now. And it goes, okay, done, you've upgraded. Yay. Even better is like, oh, upgrade didn't work, downgrade. Go use the old image. There you go, you're running on the old image now. You can actually flip back and forth a lot more easily that way. So yeah, it's a bit of a trick to get that in and get that, but it's not that bad. You just get a different image and say, I want you to restart and use that image instead, and that's your upgrade. Yes? Security reasons, once I set this up, can or should I disable the SA? Is the account? Oh, sure, that's your choice. I mean, if you follow that practice, which is a good practice actually, on your SQL Server, sure. In my case, it's a lab. I don't care, right? And earlier, again, because I can't have I do a lot of stuff with integrated security, that kind of thing, so like this doesn't work for me in a live environment, but here it's a lab. Yeah, if you want to do that, that's fine. I highly recommend, since there's only one user account in this system right now, that you do that after you've made other accounts that have access. I mean, I have some good tips. But yeah, so that's a fun thing to find in there. Well, let's get down here. So this big chunk of code that we had looked at earlier, you want to get that IP address. That's a little bit easier to read. Let's grab that IP address and let's go over SMS and take a look at this. Let's go see how we interact with this. Everyone recognizes this, right? SMS. I'm sorry, I'm old school. I've been working this thing since since last century. I've worked in this stuff. Connect database engine. throw that IP address in there. Hey, anyone remember what this password was? I probably got it wrong. Oh, I got it right. Awesome. Hey, look at that. It's a SQL Server. Databases. Oh, yeah. Let's make a new database, huh? What do you guys want to call it? Yeah, that works. You guys are slow. Come on. You ask me questions, I got to make up time. It's a database. Tables, views, procedure, whatever I want to do. It's a database. My system tables are there. My temp DB, all that stuff is in there. Come in here. This is SQL Server Dev Edition, if it wants to work for me. Properties, I can configure my memory. I can set my security settings in here. I find it intriguing that I can pick that if I want, but it's not going to really work well. That's a whole different issue, but you know. My advanced settings, this is not like a trim down. This is Dev Edition SQL Server that I'm running in this container. I'm now connected to it through the IP. That's cool. The other way I can connect to this one is to go to my local machine name and put that port number, that weird one, the 14331. If I go in and connect through that way, hey, look at that. I got connected real quick there, and look, you know it's the same one because the Summit 2019 database is there. So there's my two ways I can connect. Oh, okay, nice. I got ways to do that. Now let's have some fun. Let's go ahead and stop the container. It takes it just a second there. There, that's effectively turned off my SQL Server. If I go back over, it's going to time out. I'm not going to bother with a timeout on that. And we can tell that it's turned off. We do our PS. You can see I have no running containers, but if I do PS-A, you can see it's like, oh yeah, there was your hello world that you were running a little, 22 minutes ago. Wow, I've used up that much time. And there's my developer one that I had, walk-stock demo. It's created 6 minutes ago, but we exited it 14 seconds ago. So I know that my container is still there. Well, how do I bring it back? Well, I just go and say, hey, now that I have it, I don't have to do a Docker run because that creates a new container off the images that I told it to use. Now I just say, look, I already have one sitting over here called walk-stock demo. Walks is reference to my old company name, WaterOx Consulting. It's called walk-stock demo. You go ahead and you just start it up again, all that configuration, all that stuff that we had done, including the database that we made, the SA account that we could have disabled, other user accounts that we created, they're all sitting in there because they're all within the, guess what? They're contained in the container. I know, that was really bad. Oh, I don't want to read my reviews. Once that's up and running, we pop back over here, come down to this one down here, and I can, we can just refresh. We'll do it that way. Oh yeah, connected, no problem. Okay, yeah, thanks. You go ahead and turn off. But if I go to refresh this one, it's not going to work. And the reason, I don't want to do it because it bogs things down for a little while, but let's go take a look over here and let's see what the IP address is. Exact same code. Let's see what the IP address is now. That's not the same. That's not the same. That starts to make a problem for me when I want to use IP connections. Yeah, so now if I wanted to connect, I'd actually have to grab this IP address, go over there, and oh, see, it's trying to connect because I clicked on it. Oh no, there. Yeah, go away. I want you to go to an actual new. Go in there. Everybody remember this? Everyone knows how to look it up, right? There's the new one with the Summit 2019 on there. Just the same. So using my name and my port mapping, I can say the same, which is nice, but that IP address changes. Do I know why? No, I'm not a Docker guy. Yeah, I haven't dug that deep into it. I just know that for me as a DBA, when I was setting up my lab, I was like, I was connected to this IP. What the heck happened? Let me restart it again, just in case. And I get caught in a loophole. So, pardon? In SMS, right-click on, see what options are available? Sure, yeah, because I said that we can't do restarts in that. Yeah, you want proof? All right. There's proof. See, I know you guys don't believe me on anything. There's proof. Man, okay, I got a hand way up high and back. Does it show up in our config studio manager? As far as I know, so if I go to SQL Server Configuration 2007 to 2017, is it going to show up my service accounts and all that kind of fun stuff to configure? No, because it's on a container, which is a separate machine technically. As far as I know. I haven't dug in great depth, but I'm pretty darn sure because of the way it works. Again, it's taken what it needs and it's running over here as its own thing. And you can tell because I do have a local version of SQL Server running on 1433. If that showed up in the same config with the port mapping from my local onto the container, just like a VM, it would be freaking out on a port conflict, right? Yeah. Yep. Yeah. When I create the database, where does it go? To the default paths that I configured. I didn't configure any, so it's buried in program file, SQL Server, blah, 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 on that container. It actually has the file structure there, and it's put the files in there. Now, I'll show later on how we can places that you can reconfigure that. We could always go in after the fact and reconfigure and map out different drives in that if we wanted. But I'm going to start zooming along here. I saw another hand popping up quick. I'm going to take one more and then zoom on because I got a lot more stuff to cover. I'll make sure we get it. Can I connect from a container to another thing? Is that Edwin in the back shaking his head at me? Oh man, now I'm terrified. Edwin knows this stuff. Yes, you can. Yeah. Pardon? Through a linked server connection? Yeah, you should be able to. If you're going external just to a SQL server, it should be in there natively. Again, I'm running Dev Edition on a Windows. Essentially, I'm running a Windows machine that has what it needs in there, which would have those pieces for the container. So it should be able to do that. I need Edwin sitting like right front and center. But yeah, so it is a fully functional version of SQL Server, except for the integrated security part, which there is that kind of a workaround you can do. I'm not overly comfy with it to do a live environment with it. All right, okay, I'm serious. I'm going to do one more. I'm going to go. He's like, yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. So if an app dev goes and creates something, he points to my IP address, and I restart my container, how does he handle the issue? I'm not a dev. I mean, I used to be, but I'm not. No, that's going to be his problem. But these are the things that started popping into my head, right? Right? And so that's like, wait a minute, what was going on here? Yeah, so this is how I would handle it, because I'm a DBA, and this makes sense to me, is that I would look at setting a static IP. Right? Great segue. Thank you. All right? So setting it here, what gets interesting with this is you have to create a Docker network first to be able to set this value in here. It's a weird, quirky little thing. What kind of got me with this is there was a specific way you had to do it. I did that, and then I went to go demo it, and the people who had put those components out had retracted them from the repositories, and so that method didn't work anymore, and I couldn't find any documentation. So I started hacking around until I could find some way to do it. Edwin will definitely tell you that I'm doing it wrong, probably. So, yes. Oh, to make a copy of a container with same name, you'd have it have a different name, I think. I know it's got a unique ID with internally of it, but I don't think you can have the same name running on the same system. When you're making copies of it, well, I'm going to show you where I set the static IP, and you'll see why that's not as critical a point in the way that I do it. And then you could handle it. You'd have to handle it otherwise in configuration when you're making copies of that. Because I do it in the run command, not in config files. So every time that I do the run command, that's where I set my IP address. And that's how I control how I'm doing it there. So we'd have to make a Docker network first, declare subnet range and gateways for it. And then we do Docker run just as before, but we add an address ID specification. So here it's the Docker run name, this is this, IP equals that. Here's where I'm setting it up. So I'm still running off of my original Windows Server, my SQL Server Windows developer copy down there. I'm just saying, hey, I want you to use this IP address on here, use this network that I called Box Demo, put it on this name, put it out there. If I was doing another system with a different name, I could do the same image, same concept, but now I can change my IP address here when I'm creating the container versus trying to do it some other way. That make some sense there? I like that I'm like on sync with you guys, kind of. You're asking questions, and there's the answer. This is great. Hopefully, there's the answer. So let's take a quick look at that. Let's configure static IP, verify the address, restart it, and just re-verify it again. Hard stuff there. All right, so creating the network, Docker network create -d nat. Again, run as a service. I want my subnet in here, and my gateway, I'm going to call it walks demo. That's all I'm doing to create my network that I'm adding. This is my own custom internal looping. Before, you used to not be able to use the NAT. You had to do another specific, I think it was a LAN type or something. But the people who had the code that worked with retracted it the day before I did a demo. That was a really late night. I'm getting it set up work. But now you can do it this way, which seemed a lot easier. You see we get a GUID fires up here, and we're back to our prompts. So now we can do a Docker network ls. List our networks that we configured in our Docker system. And we have a whole bunch of default ones, and you'll see at the bottom is our walks demo one that we just created, where I get to go and start to define what I want to do in here. So make sure I've got my container still sitting out there. Is it still there? Is it running? Up for 8 minutes. Yeah, okay. So we're going to stop that. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop that walk-stock demo container. And then I'm going to actually remove it. Don't Docker RM often. Doing what I'm doing is great for demos, but this now, remember that database we made, any configurations that we might have done? Whoops. Yeah, they're gone. RM just actually deletes everything of that container. So the database we had sitting in there, because it was embedded in that container, any of the configuration we did that was in that container, whoops, it's gone now. I still have my source image that I can use, and now what I can do is run, and I can create a new walk-stock demo, and I can put in an IP address. So when it came back to like, hey, what's the upgrade path if you want to upgrade and patch SQL Server? How do you do it? It would be similar to this, that you could actually stop your container and start it up again, but using a new image that's the new updated image. And when you have persistent volumes in that, and when we get into that section, you can see, oh, we have the data there that we can reattach and pull back in. So there's some modification you can do, and just say basically start it up with it. You create a copy of yours, make the up things, tell it to use the new image, and go that way. I'm not going to be covering that in detail here, but it is a very slick process that's going to make life easier for a lot of us. Did I hit run on that, guys? No. Good catch. All right, get that fired up and running. I'll wait that for just a second. Just so you know, I am running this on an old Surface Pro 3. Brent knows our line that this will probably start hovering any moment now. And I just have Docker running. I have Windows. I have Docker for Windows running on a Windows 10 on a Windows Surface 3. That's my own little environment. I also have Hyper-V running on it. I have domain controllers. I mean, I have a ton of stuff running on this, and Docker's just going along with its thing pretty nicely. And that's our newly configured SQL Server up and running. Let's take a look at the IP address. It should match up what we told it to be. 192.168.10.2, fantastic. Let's stop and restart that container. Now, in normal cases, what happens? IP changes, right? But we set this up and said, no, but I built this container saying, I want you to use this network that I configured. I want you to use this IP address when you start up. And so now when this one comes back in a moment and starts up, as it just did there, we fire this off, and we actually have the same IP address. Yay, one thing down, we got a static IP address, nobody cares. All right, great, let's blow all that away. That was a fun demo. We'll clean all that up for now and get into some other stuff in here. This is where it gets really fun. Dockerfile, yeah. Can you create like another container using that network but a different IP address? Yes, that's the whole purpose. I've created. The network is at the host layer, right? At my, in this case, Docker level. Those are stored in the Docker engine that's running, that runs the containers. So I can make multiple networks if I wanted to, or I can have this as my one network, and I can do different IP addresses on all my different containers if I wanted and have them be static that way. Yeah. Yes? Is that network isolated? As far as I know, yes. Yes, Edwin confirmed. So that is isolated to here in this case. I haven't dug in deep enough to try it building out in a full network type of environment to see what options I have as connectivity through, because you'd normally be hitting the host and then directing in via the ports and that. So I'm not 100% sure of the way to map that out fully. Definitely Edwin in the back is the one to talk to. He's right. Yeah, he's hating me now. Yeah, well, he just disappeared. Love you, Edwin. Dockerfile. This is fun. It's basically just a text document. But what it does is it contains the commands to assemble an image. Images assemble. Oh, I don't know where that came from. I'm sorry. So it contains commands to assemble an image when we do this. And it's command line instructions, basically. So what I do is I go and say, hey, I want you to use the SQL Server image. I'd like to, on the C drive, give me a SQL Server directory. I'd like you to take these files that I have sitting in a directory on my local host. When you build this image up, I'd like you to go and attach these files in. And so that when someone, and then build my own image, my own version of the SQL Server image that I'm using for my container. Let's build that up. And then when I go and run my stuff like that, some of these items are already going to be there that I want. I don't have to go in after the fact and do things like disable my SA account, add other accounts in, add a file, add a database, configure that kind of a thing. And I just said we can attach them there. So let's take a look at that real quick. We'll take a look real quick at the Dockerfile that I have in here, which is a very, very, very simple, dumbed down one because of me. And then we'll take a look at running that, connect and check things out in it. All right, I'm going to actually switch to the directory here. And then I'm going to go to the directory. So Dockerfile is named Dockerfile. It's not that bad. We'll open that in Notepad since it's plain and boring. And it's, let's see, can you guys see that okay? Yeah, if not, move up. So the way I've got this one written out, I think it should be, you've probably already read through the 10 lines of code and know exactly what it's doing, because you probably like that, I'm just assuming. But I'm going to say I'm going to use the SQL developer image that I have. So from Microsoft MS SQL Server Windows Developer. So I'm going to start with this image. That's kind of my initial boilerplate template. Okay. When you fire up this container image I want to build, I want you to go out and I want you to make a directory on the C drive called SQL Server. Anybody remember command line code? Yeah, sorry. Then I've got a couple of files that I have sitting on my local machine. The directory I switched to is this one right here. You probably recognize some of those file structures. Right? We've got demo.mdf and LDF, and we've got walks demo MDF, LDF, and an NDF as well. They're just database files that I did there. They're detached database files. But I'm going to say what I want you to do when you do this, because my PowerShell, you notice I changed into that directory because I don't want to type that much. I'm going to say, look, I want you to copy from my local directory that I'm here. I want you to copy that to my container and put it in the C drive SQL Server directory. I want you to copy the 2 files for demo. On the demo 2 one, I want you to copy those ones over as well. I want you to set the SA password to SA12345. So I'm not doing it on my little line that I'm running. I'm hiding it in here. Except my EULA. And then down bottom, I'm going to pass in a command line that says, hey, and when you start this up, attach these databases to these directories. The fun little note that drove me nuts for 2 days. If you're running on Windows 10, you need to use 4 backslashes to escape the backslash correctly. Otherwise, you use 2 on server. You can tell how much fun I had with that. Things they don't tell you. Oh, Windows, just double up on that. You'll be fine. So that's all there is to this file in here. Any questions about that? There's a lot more detail you can do. There's a lot more options you can add in there. Yes? Is it limited to batch? Can you do PowerShell? I'm pretty sure because it's command line. Well, can you do PowerShell? I don't know. I haven't tried. I'm not 100% sure that on a SQL Server container image, it would have the PowerShell components that it would need to run PowerShell. Versus SQL command we have, so we have command line components in there. So I'm not sure. Try it and let me know. We're all curious, right? I got a hand waving way in the back. Did I? Oh, so if I go back to SMS when we had it running earlier, which we don't because we threw it away, you right-click. You saw the PowerShell option in there. I did not check for that. Did we see that in there? Everyone's like clicking back on the video now. Yeah, it was there. Okay. I have to be brutally honest. I've not tried it because I just want to get SQL Server running. Period. But I'm going to try. I'm going to try it. Get your system loaded up like this, build it up, and try it out too. That's all I can say to that one. I'm sorry defaulting to Edwin on this. He spent much more time in Docker as like more of a Docker person than me. PowerShell run on that? Did you hear that? Native PowerShell is there by default. There you go. Yes, you could do it. I would assume would be the answer now that yes, you could do that. Native PowerShell is included in that SQL image. Yes. The tables, like the database, the tables within the database type of thing, it's going to depend on how you configure your system. So the question is going back to the upgrade path, which again, I'm not covering in depth in this one. There's, again, other folks who go in more depth into that kind of thing of how you go through that upgrade process and update and patching. But what happens to your database, basically, when you're patching? I would say in these environments where you don't have it locked into persistent storage, you may not still be around. But if you're getting to the point where you're going to be putting this somewhere seriously, you're going to want to do that, you're going to want the persistent storage, which we'll get to in just a moment of how to set that up. So the file, those data files are not necessarily stored in the container, they're now stored outside of the container. So even if I remove the container, this still exists. So we'll get to that one in just a bit. All right. So once we've got that in there, all right, what was still in here? Did we get everything in there? Yeah, we got everything in there. You're all good with that. All right, so this is where it gets kind of fun. When I want to build my own image, I just have to give the command docker build -t demo. -t is a tag or a name. I want you to create a build of an image for me, call it demo, and then I have period. Use the directory I'm in right now, because I don't like to type a lot. That's the only reason it's a period there. You could put it in your path and that kind of thing. But I just wouldn't do that. And when you fire that off, that's actually going to go and start a process here. You see it starting here. Step 1 of 10. So let me know if any of this code looks familiar. All right? So this is going out, and it's kind of building this image up and saying, okay, I've got these components. I'm going to do this. I'm going to run this. Can I do it? Can I do it? Can I do it? Can I do it? Yes, 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 because it's a demo. It should hopefully work. And you get this kind of stuff out there. And it's going to take it a little bit of time to go and build this up here. It's actually picking up pace a little bit. Yay. Thank you, demo gods, today. So that's going to go through our things. It's adding our directories. And then in just a moment, as you're going to see, as it takes its time here to give us an update, that it's going to go through step 3. We're going to start copying files. You notice, removing intermediate containers. So it's actually building an image by creating containers, launching this stuff in there, setting these things, making sure it's all good, and then you're going to wind up with a final image that this is now my new template. And so this is how I can start using the Dockerfile to configure this thing ahead of time. But then when this is done like this, it says, okay, I've successfully tagged demo latest. So I've successfully built this ID, and I've successfully tagged it as demo latest version. Okay, if you want to get an earlier version of SQL Server, by default, the way I ran it downloads the latest. You can actually go look at the versions and say, I want an earlier version, or an earlier patch number, or later, that kind of a thing. But now that it's gone and created a demo out there, if I come and look at my images that are local here, let's clear that real quick. What did I have as my local images before? Hello World and SQL Server Developer Edition. When I fire that off now, we'll notice there's another one in there That's a little bit bigger here. Where we go, right up there up top. Oh, I love this wrap. Demo, latest. There's our ID, 52 seconds ago, 15.3 gig in size. That's a little bit bigger than the dev version. Why is it a little bit bigger? There's databases in there in theory, right? We copied some files in there. So the image has gotten a little bit bigger with that, but now it has those files that I want in there. Okay, that's cool. That's cool, Chris. What do we do with that? Well, what we get to do with that is start writing a whole lot less code to start up containers. I'm not worrying about static IP in this one, but now when I want to run build out this system and use this new one with these databases already attached, I can go and say docker run, call it walk demo, -d, so I run as a service, port mapping, same one I had before. Notice before where I had that long MS SQL, Windows, now it's just use my demo image that I just created. That's what I want you to build with instead. Let's fire that off and give that a minute to go there. How am I on time? Right, yes, what I was doing is building the template. That was the build. Docker build a template for me, essentially. Run these commands ahead of time. Now I have an image with that in there. That's what it took to start and do all that kind of thing.
You could start docs demo 2, docs demo 3, docs demo 4, and they'd all be running the same code. They'd all come
right.
And they could have different.
Yeah, we can run different versions because now I have a new base template that I'm going from. I have my base template. I say, yeah, run with this one, call it this. Run with this one, call it this. So. Yeah. Yeah, as was said, what guy in the audience here is going and saying is like, this is actually like, this is cool because I can have my system, I have a lab, and I can say, this is how I want my lab to kind of reset to, pre-configure the Dockerfile, build this image, and say, okay, fine, fire up system 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I got 6 systems, they're all at the same starting point. You mess around with this thing if I want, throw it away, start up another one, go right back to where you started. So, yeah, so yes, the template that we made, the image itself is not going to change based on any changes we make within the container. Those are separate entities. The image is my template. The container is what I'm doing with that at the end. And so yeah, if you want to go back and say, I have a starting point, let me do it, fire off this one, boom, bang, there's my image, do da-da-da-da-da. Oh, I totally messed that up. Let me go do a different one over here. Throw that one away. You're back to square one wherever you want it to be. The only way you're going to change that image is by generating a new. Yeah. Can you configure so it's pointing at a SAN for your database files? That kind of, you can, absolutely. Yeah, that's the fun thing with this is that you can start changing those settings, different config. I'm trying to show a very base level, get you kind of, like I'm seeing everyone thinking about what's the next step you could take this to, and that's what I really want you to do. Get the basics to get it working, run with it. So yeah, you can, this is the things. Using this tool to create an image that way, or there's other things you can do to ramp up and get a little bit more stuff going on in there. But let's take a quick look at this system. Thankfully, by using the same name, I can refresh, and you can see there now I have 2 databases already attached in there. Because I'm using name and port number in this case and not my IP, I just refresh my connection on the new container. Ta-da, there I am. But now it has those different databases already attached and fully functional in there for me, ready to go. All right, whew, last little bit. I'm close, aren't I? People are like texting me. Yeah, I was like, don't text me now, guys, I gotta finish. Data volumes, this is that whole thing for me. You know, again, we kind of like our data to stick around. You know, we saw an RM command that throws your container out. Well, okay, fine, throw away, I'm gonna build a whole new template image, I wanna do some new image, I didn't like what happened, I wanna redo it. Whoops, I didn't put my database outside of the container, I've gone, now it's all gone, I'm kind of messed up. So we wanna persist the data in a location through the start and stop process, because that Docker RM removes everything that's on that container. So data volumes will persist even after your container deletion. So again, it's one thing to stop it. You bring it back up, everything's there. And RM is just delete all the stuff that's on this container. So there's a couple of options. You can mount a host directory, where it's just Docker run and add a -v host directory, var option, MS SQL type of thing. If you're doing Linux type base, you can do Windows, you can map it out here, and you'll see in my code I do that. You could also mount a data volume container and use a different kind of mount that way and go out into a container specifically designed for doing volume mounts in that. To list the volumes that you have configured on your host, because they are host level, Docker volume ls. So it's kind of easy to see where these things are and where to find them, and you know how to list them all, right? All ls or ls-a for anything that's not there. And Docker volume rm will get rid of that volume, which will, notice in parentheses, the important word, permanently, right? Docker rm does not have a trash can. Once it's gone, it's gone. And what's nice with that is once I map that drive in there, I can go on my SQL Server and go, oh yeah, I've got a backup drive that I've hooked in, which is what we'll do. So I can mount a volume that's for my backups, and when I make my backups in SQL Server on my container, they're now stored on a volume that is outside of the container. Blow my container away, doesn't matter. Store my volumes and my data files and that on the outside part of that container. When I fire up a new container, I can mount those back in if I want, or I can read those back in as backups. I can put my data files outside of my container. It opens up a lot of opportunity to start to build this out and persist more. So we map this, map it with the run v volume name in there, and then restoring a database in containers, it's SQL Server. Right-click if you want, write your T-SQL code. You can go ahead and do that, and it's the same process to restore. It's just restore from this path over here, put it on my SQL Server, and done. So it works nicely that way. GUI or script, either one works. Get in here, take a quick look at that in here. Let's get our volume set up. Docker run, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop and remove our current one that we have that was built off a demo. So to create a new volume, I'm just going to create a volume within in Docker and just name it SQL Backups. Fire that off in there. It goes that quick. List all the different volumes I have. Guess how many I've got? 1. That's all I've done. And now when I do a Docker run, I can add in this -v map to my local path, which is, this just happens to be the default that I have it mapping to in here, the program data Docker volume SQL Backups. Map it on, just kind of like the port mapping, it's that same sequence. Here's my local on my host. Here's where I want it to be in the container. C drive, backups. And I'm going to build this image off of my demo image that we created earlier. Does that make sense? Yeah, you're still with me? Wow. I'm like, phew. I lose myself in this most of the time, if that wasn't obvious. Fire it up, let that get going in there. Give that a second to get through its thing. Back over here. Let that finish. Come on. Start up. There we go. We've started up. Back over here. Let's do a refresh on that one. Did I set the port the wrong way? What did I set the port as? No, okay, I got 14.331. Let's just close all those. Connect. There we go. Connected in. Built out that image, so we already have our backups there. When I go, if I just say, look, I've not done anything, we'll cheat in here. Where's my backup in here? How often I do it this way. It's under tasks, isn't it? There it is, backup. Let's fire up a backup. Let's remove this. Let's add. No, don't take the defaults. Go into my C drive. This is my C drive on my container. Right, so you see you got SQL Server, program data. So this is the file, the directory we made there. Well, there's the backups that we mapped. Remember, we mapped it to just C backups. So there's my backup directory. I spelled that wrong, didn't I? It's okay, make sure it's small type so you can't see it. So we'll just back it up to there. Yeah, just go, because it's basically an empty database. That backup is complete. I can do a restore if I wanted. I can see the same directory in there, but what gets fun is if we go over here. Going to Docker and going to volumes. You see SQL backups? What was the file that we just made? That's sitting on my C drive on my host system. It's not in my container. And so what that lets me do now, if I really want to, is I can come in here and say, great, let's blow that away. Container, gone. What does RM do? It removes everything, destroys the container completely. It's gone. That container does not exist. The image of it, it's all gone, and yet my backup file or in other cases, my data files, my log files, all the stuff I care about in my container has been persisted through this volume out there. Cool, huh? All righty. All right, well, we did all that. All right, that was basically it. That was the main things that I hit. So you can see kind of how some of it can be a little bit frustrating when it's like, hey, where does my data go? You know, how do I get this IP? How do I do these different things just for some consistency and that in there? I hope that this is, oh wow, this has got weird like little things in there. Keep up with me there. But I hope this is gonna help some of you try out getting a lab up and running and just to play with this. You know, that's what I do. I just like, oh, I gotta do something. Let me fire up a lab, just throw it up here on my local machine. It gives me something I don't have to have Hyper-V installed. I don't need all the VMware. I don't need all that kind of thing. There it is, done, doing what I need it to do. Hope it's helpful. Don't forget about those reviews. I know I was horrible. I say it for everybody else. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you.